like Jira, and also we can, this planning, sprint planning, and management of this bugs and everything we do on the Azure platform. That's exactly meaning of Azure DevOps. So in terms of Azure plus DevOps means we will come, it will come under all these, areas that we are going to discuss. One is Azure Cloud and Azure DevOps. What I mentioned is repos, boards, pipelines, artifacts, test plans, and the CI/CD pipeline, right? We have one feature, as you mentioned, right? It's pipelines. So in this feature, we are going to build ML or classic release pipelines. We have two types of pipelines there. One is ML is a customized pipeline, and the classic release pipelines will be the like we can see UI, right, where we can go and give the branch name and select under the drop down we'll select. So this kind of GUI based pipeline will be the classic release pipeline. These two things we have in the CI/CD. And apart from this, we have Docker and AKS. So where we write the Docker images to build our source code, and once the build is completed, it will be converted into the Docker image, and the Docker image will be deployed into the deployment platforms like Docker, Swarm, or else Kubernetes. So we have the AKS is there, Azure Kubernetes Service. So that is like a cloud managed service. When we go with the Kubernetes architecture, there we can see master plane and worker planes will be there, right? If you are aware about the Kubernetes architecture. So the master plane will be managed by the Azure cloud here. So that's a difference. If you go with the native Kubernetes, then we need to manage both Kubernetes master plane and data plane also. So if you go with the AKS, or else if you go with the AWS EKS and GCP GKE, anything you consider, the master plane will be managed by the cloud provider. Only worker nodes and how much as per the project requirement and application requirement, we choose a number of worker nodes and size of the VMs in it in terms of RAM, memory, those will be selected based on the requirement. And ISC and Azure. So I mentioned, right, infrastructure as a code. Nowadays, everything we are tracking through the ISC only. We are not going to create everything in the Azure cloud for bigger projects. I'm saying we are implementing through ISC platforms like Terraform. It's infrastructure as a code tool. In the Azure itself, we have ERM templates, Azure Resource Manager and Bicep. So these are the tools we are going to discuss. So any suggestions and opinions on this?
So Docker and Kubernetes will be reviewing it from basic, right?
Yeah, we will touch from basics only.
Okay.
Because if we take Docker itself, it will take more than 10-15. Kubernetes itself, if we go into deep dive, it will be more than 20-25 like that. So we'll cover everything, whatever we require for as a starter. If we go deep dive also, it will be very difficult to understand.
What about Azure Cloud? It's from basic or from advanced?
We will discuss from basic, whatever we have. How to understand as a fresher in Azure, what is subscription, what is ARM. You mentioned it as a resource manager. How the backend is responding when you are going to create something in Azure GUI. So how the cloud is responding, what API is moving any resource. Those kind of levels. How the things are working in the backend, that will look into it. What are the main services are required for the DevOps also will look into it.
So for deep dive for Docker and Kubernetes, there will be any study material?
Sure, Gaurav. We'll look into it if you are interested, right? We'll go into the deep dive and also I'll share with you some materials also.
Okay. And also, are we going to look into GitHub Actions as well?
GitHub Actions as of now we are not planned. But Azure DevOps, we are looking into it. But maybe we'll take one more session.
Yes, because most of the organizations are moving toward GitHub Actions from DevOps Azure pipelines to GitHub Actions.
That is correct only. Why? Because even GitHub also belongs to the Microsoft only, right?
Right.
So now we are having Azure repo. Is the repos is there right under the Azure Devops?
Right.
This is one separate platform, Azure Devops.
Right.
Under that, repos, boards, pipelines, artifacts, test plans, everything we are managing. Now GitHub is, like it's like source code management platform since years. More customers are there. That's why they are going to migrate. They develop this GitHub action for pipelines and giving some free minutes and all. They are doing this advertisement. Maybe it will take some time to migrate from the Azure DevOps to the GitHub Actions. Now there are many limitations in the GitHub Actions.
Because the organization which I'm working, they have moved to GitHub Actions.
Because GitHub is more secure and we can,
Right.
all the big projects will be there, right? If we have n number of organizations, that can be easily manageable in the GitHub. So that's why people are moving to the pipelines also there. If we have a more number of organizations to manage number of pipelines, it will be not that much comfortable with the Azure DevOps. Also GitLab, Bitbucket also.
So at the end, we can see, right, moving of pipeline from
I will
Azure
show.
to
Actually, we also have GitHub Actions and even my current project. I will show you. I'll give it them on top of that.
And we also going to look into monitoring tool.
We'll see. Grafana, Prometheus, and Datadog. Anything I'll plan on our tool.
Sir, can you teach us Linux? Linux is required.
Linux actually it is here. We don't use much, but it is good to have, right? Linux. Almost all our system admins and all, right? You're
but
familiar already with Linux.
I don't know Linux. I didn't work on Linux.
Basically, we are not much. You please go through. I'll share some document with you, and you ping me in the WhatsApp so that you go through that. And we'll discuss maybe now.
Is required.
Scripting is not all required. Nowadays, we are using everything AI, right? Copilot and all.
But
you have your idea that
some
will
basic knowledge would be required, even if automation is there, AI is there, to understand how exactly the script is working.
Yeah, that's what. You should have some idea how it's going to be work, what you're going to be automated. But now it is not required. Why? Because we are using Terraform. So here some different logics will be there. So if you go with some resourcing provision, then some places shell script or something is needed. You're creating some resources through Azure Biceps or Terraform. But you please start on the Linux side so that you ping me in WhatsApp. We will discuss them personally.
Okay, sir.
So what's my understanding that based on your experience, and also I generally plan in this way. So kind of modules wise, what will be the Azure cloud fundamentals? So what exactly the cloud computing and how Azure it is? What is the Azure global infrastructure? In the global, we have multiple regions. Under one region, we have multiple zones. And zones means like kind of fault tolerance. Let's say in India, we have one region. Under the same region, we have two zones. If Hyderabad region goes down, Mumbai zone should work. Like that, zones will be there, and geographies will be there. If you go with the CDN, content delivery network, Azure front end, there you will have some edge locations will be there, kind of caching. So these kind of things we will discuss. And Azure portal, CLI, PowerShell, these things I will show you maybe once I access to the Azure cloud. And what is subscription, resource groups, ARM templates, and pricing, cost management, and these things. Maybe you all better to have an account, personal account with your personal email ID, so that will be helpful. It will get one year free, right? So that we can create some. You can explore something. You can create some resources in the GUI. You can try how it is works. What are the options we have in the GUI? So if you spend some time, then you can create more catchy to understand. So this will come under Azure Fundamentals module. And if you go with Azure Active Directory, everywhere we have the permission and security will be there, right? So IAM and Active Directory is the first place which grabs the security, where we can have the Azure Entra ID. Earlier it was Active Directory, so they deprecated this name and kept it as an Entra ID, where we can manage the RBAC permissions, like role pass access controls, users, groups, tenants, policies, everything will be there under this. These are same thing. Service principal means one app registration, where we can connect one cloud resource to another cloud resource, and one tenant to other tenant. Otherwise, one cloud to any third-party application like that. We use service principals and managed identities. You all know Microsoft Authentication, MFA, and these things also will look into it. Conditional accesses and policies, what authorities are having. So those things will look into it under the security part. When you come under the Azure computing services, virtual machines will be, we call it as virtual machines. What are the plans are there? What are the prices are there? Pricings, those also will look into it, and the provisioning and management. Scale sets, virtual machine scale sets. How many virtual machines you want, based upon the load and all. Those you can write the Azure scale sets into provision. Azure App Services. Without containerizing any application, you go and deploy your application on top of Azure Web Apps. This is a simple feature Azure has given. Everywhere we have, like server, kind of, you're not containerizing any application, you're directly giving your artifact once the build is completed. This will be deployed. So this kind of application it is. And the same thing, Azure Functions, kind of the cron jobs or any automation things we can do with this. And then Azure storage and networking. Storage account, as in AWS, we have S3 bucket. We have storage account here. Under that, what is blob, what is file, and queue and table. Blob means we can store any chunks of data file like that. If you have only folder structure of any data, then you go for the Azure file share, and the queue and table and these comes under the, especially for any database and specific requirement of data, you use those kind of storage. And also, managed disks will be there, snapshots will be there. Managed disks means, let's say you have deployed something in Kubernetes. For your pod or your application, you wanted to provision some data and one disk. So in that case, you will provision one disk and you will attach to that. You will attach that to your Kubernetes through the persistent volumes or else any storage account that you can give. So that way we use managed disks. I mean, one use case I'm selecting like that. Many use cases we will have. And also virtual nets, subnets, NSGs. Network security groups. So these are the main security and isolation of your application within your security. That way you will do. And other thing is load balancer, application gateway, traffic manager. These are the three kinds of load balancers we have. Let's say app gateway and traffic manager. It's having it's different applications. Let's say if you go with Azure App Gateway, it will have some WA functionality also. So these kind of things we'll look into after. And VPN gateway, express route, overview. Kind of connectivity between one network to another network and cloud to on-premise. So these kind of things we see in later sessions. And databases and monitoring, Azure repos and source control. So we go on discuss about these topics. What is Azure SQL database? And in terms of we are going into as a DevOps perspective only. As a DevOps guy, we will create the database and will configure, provide the required connection strings and those things with either DB team or developer. So those kind of level only we will look into it. And also where we configure everywhere Azure monitor for logs and app insights, alerts, action groups, dashboards. This is common for every service we do. And this is normal backup or any failover strategy, site recovery. This also will be the native part in the database.
Nowadays, Datadog is being used more, right, for monitoring?
That is third-party tool. That also we can see if you want. Either Prometheus or Grafana or else Datadog. But if you go with Azure tool, right, it's like by native one. Azure Monitor will be the native part of native monitoring tool for Azure Cloud. If you open any service, under that you will have one Azure App Insights.
Mm-hmm.
If you enable that, you can see all the logs and any responses, everything you can see there. Yeah. Now next module will be the Azure repos and source control. Azure repos means where we can post our source code. As GitHub, Azure repos is our source code management tool, where we can see DevOps organization, project, difference between these two. Wherever we have in the GitHub, organization will be there, right? Same organization here also it means. Under the same, we have project setup. So same, we create the projects. Under the project, we will have a repositories. And the branches and branching strategies. Usually what we follow, those we will discuss. There's some standard branching strategies and merging strategies, pull request. So those things also will look into it. And this part also, we will cover branching policies and code review workflows. And how to integrate from Azure DevOps to Azure Cloud, and integration with the GitHub to Azure DevOps. So these things also we'll look into it by creating a pad token. So that can be integrated from one any like Azure DevOps to other things also will do. Post that, Azure boards will be there. It's similar to the Jira, where we can control our work items and epics, features, stories, tasks, and these we can monitor, and also sprint planning and running Kanban boards. Everything will be there. So usually I worked on the sprints and all. I will show you how we do as per the Agile methodology. And Azure pipelines. This is the main core part for DevOps. As a DevOps means there are many multiple things. But main thing is we have to understand what exactly the CI/CD workflow. Wherever you join as a DevOps, you migrate to the DevOps. You need to understand the configurations on the CI/CD pipeline. Where the developer just writing his code and pushing it to his own branch. Then, as per the branching strategy, we merge into some protected branch, like main branch or dev branch. So where we keep our pipeline under that branch. Once any commit is coming into our branch, automatically pipeline will trigger. That will continuously build the entire code. That will generate one image. That image will be pushed into any Artifactory. Like in Azure, we have a Azure Container Registry. And outside also we have JFrog, Nexus. These artifacts will be there. You are aware already. So there also we can store our image. Again, when we in the CD pipeline will be there, continuous delivery pipeline. Under the CD pipeline, we will pull that image into it, and then we will deploy into the target environment, either it's a Kubernetes or else any Docker Swarm, anything. So we have to understand this workflow main. CI/CD is very important for us. And this Git branching strategy, everything is, we are not like, that will be the design by the team. Based on that, we have to follow only. But cloud fundamentals and CI/CD part is very critical. So once the deployment is completed, then we have to understand the Kubernetes. What are the commands will be there? How to monitor our application? If any issue is there in the application or pod side, how to troubleshoot? What are the basics to know the application? What are the basics to understand the Kubernetes, its architecture, and those things we will cover and we'll look into it. And this is the infrastructure as a code on Azure. What will be the ARM template? And any one is fine as of now. Even Terraform will be good. So if you know Terraform, right, almost the practice is similar, but the schema and syntax will be different if you compare with ARM template and biceps. But Terraform is like mostly many people are expecting. We will discuss anyone like Azure Biceps or Terraform. Both I have done recently in recent project I have worked on. How to manage state files and all. We will look into it. State file is nothing but whatever you have created in the resources, whatever you resources you have created in the Azure cloud, you will get one blueprint as a state file. So that we can manage. Why? Because that should be protected. Either we store in the storage account or else S3 bucket or else any key vault also will store that. Why? Because that is a blueprint for our entire infrastructure. No one should touch the infrastructure. If anything is like someone manually did something in the Azure cloud apart from this tracking, then we'll get a drift actually. We'll get some errors when we run the Terraform plan again. So that's why we don't disturb any this. That's why we specifically taking care on in the managing the state files. Even this also deploying Azure resource also will be deploying through the Azure pipelines. Security and compliance. This part also very important for interview purpose basically, where you store your secrets last. So you go and integrate with your Azure Key Vault integration with pipelines. So this Key Vault is, Azure Key Vault is there, right? Azure Key Vault is natively integrated with the Azure Devops platform under the pipelines itself. If you enable that, you need to give the Key Vault URL and all, then you can share over there. So like that it will work. And the secret management and variable group. These features are there in the Azure DevOps boards only. DevSecOps and security in CI/CD. This you already know. When the CI/CD is run, there will be the static code analysis tools like SonarQube, right? It will completely review the entire code, and that will generate one report. So how many bugs will be there, how many vulnerabilities are there, everything that will be displayed. So those kind of things for the code analysis. Apart from this, for DevOps, we use Trivy also. Like many will be there, white source analysis and Trivy. Trivy we use for scanning the Docker images. Once the CA process is completed, we will get Docker images. Those Docker images also will be scanned by the Trivy. It's one tool actually. So any vulnerabilities in the image. So what kind of vulnerability it is? The severity, critical, medium, low. So those things also will be scanned by that. When we go into the Docker in depth, there we'll see Docker images. In Docker instructions, we use a from, right? In the from, we use some OS. What kind of OS we are taking? If we take that OS, what are the things are coming into that? What is the image size? What is multi-stage Docker file? Those things we'll cover. So in that case, we'll understand that what is the necessity of the Trivy and scanning tools. And pipeline permissions and approvals and environments and gates. Those things also we need to configure. Because the production, we cannot allow for everyone to deploy. So in that case, we have to give the approvals and permissions. Now this is our core part actually, Docker and deep dive. Why Docker is, what is architecture, and monolithics and microservices, images, where we will store Docker Hub or ACR, any other registry, and engine installation of Linux system, and core commands like what is Docker image command, Docker PS to list all the containers, and Docker pull, and Docker push, Docker run. And these are the core commands that we will look into it. And Docker networking also. What is the Docker bridge network? What is Docker by default network? So those things also will look into it. What is Docker Compose? Docker Compose, you go for if you have multiple Docker images. Pushing images to ACR, those things configurations will look into the CI/CD part. And then containers and AKS. I mentioned, right, where we store once the CA is completed, that will generate one Docker image that will be stored in the repository, Azure container, registry, Azure container registry or Docker Hub like that. Building and pushing Docker images via pipelines. So building will be done by the Docker file. And about AKS architecture, deploying workloads into the AKS, Helm charts and GitOps with Azure DevOps. We will try to cover the Helm charts also. And that these are the ingress, scaling, monitoring with AKS cluster. These are part of the integration in the AKS cluster. Ingress in sense, Nginx ingress controller, those things. So this is the main thing we have to discuss into Kubernetes overview and architecture, pods and multi-containers, deployments, services, resource quota, volumes, ingress controllers, cluster autoscale, designing on AKS clusters, replica sets, health groups. You see, all these are simply mentioned as different features, we can say. If you just read, you'll get some understanding what is config nodes, where you can manage variables, and node affinity. Let's say we have a number of nodes will be there. We will control the nodes. You don't want to deploy everything in single node, then you go for the node affinity nodes, chains and tolerations, so far. Daemon sets, cron charts, and sample ops. You mentioned about Datadog and monitoring tool, right? If you wanted to export in all metrics in terms of infra metrics and application metrics, you have to install that either Datadog agent as a daemon set. Daemon set is nothing but one pod as a daemon set that will run in each and every node. That even that node also kills. If it, remove everything, the daemon set will not go. So that will scrape all the metrics, the node and infra metrics as well as application metrics based on our configuration to the monitoring tool. In terms of any Grafana or Datadog, anything should be installed as a daemon set agent only. So these are the core things we'll cover into the Kubernetes. We will build one in application for .NET application, CI/CD pipeline for the Azure App Service. And project, this is one project I'm saying. I mentioned that Azure App Service. Nowadays, for all small projects or less significant projects, people are simply using the Azure App Service. This will be the managed service in the Azure cloud itself. Very simple. If you go with the Kubernetes, right, you have to pay you have to pay more, and also more configurations are required. If you go with Azure App Service, the configurations are less and pay also very less. So that's why I'm giving one sample project with Azure App Service. And if you go with the Azure Kubernetes service via pipelines, Dockerized, and these things also will look into it. So I'll have one project, I'll show you. Apart from this, one more project. We will provision the infrastructure using Terraform plus pipelines. This part also will cover. And multi-stage AML pipeline with approvals and key vault. Multi-stage AML pipeline in the sense, we will have let's say we all have different, n number of environments will be there. Dev, QA, staging, prod, like that. So we will manage multi-stages in a single pipeline. CI will be same and CD will be in the same pipeline with different stages. Those things also will look into it. How we integrate the key vault with the pipeline also will check in one product. So these are the basic things and core things we will discuss in our as part of our curriculum.
So, Sujan, I have one doubt. So, how can I practice this session? How can I practice?
That is first we have to. Everyone should have one free Azure account actually.
Okay.
If we have that, whatever we discuss, so you go and you have to explore the things, right?
It's for only for 1 month, no? The subscription of Azure account price for
30 days.
It's 20 days.
30 days.
30 days. Yeah. In 30 days you can cover. Sorry?
You can review actually whatever the things you have created, right? You like even after 30 days also, you go and you want to create something, you click on any resource, you can see many options and everything you can see, right? You're not using the cloud and you're not provisioning anything, right? First you wanted to explore the services, what exactly it is, what are the options we have. So everything that you can read. We will go and see the basics and also some options whatever we have for the Devops. And you can see some other exploration. So that is one thing. And the remaining things, as we discussed, we have to look into it. And remaining things will be as we discussed in every session. So we have to, like, let's say we go with Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps account also it will be free. Azure, Azure boards, those also we can see. And that account also you can create. I will give the configurations like pipeline configuration, Terraform configurations, and how we are doing. So those also I will try to give everything. So based on that, you also can practice.
So, can I start Linux class? Is it mandatory to?
I try to understand the basics, like what exactly the Linux. It's one OS, right? We already techies, we are having enough experience. So
Windows side I have, but Linux I didn't have experience and I didn't learn.
PowerShell, right? Windows side means.
Yes, PowerShell.
You know PowerShell, right? How the PowerShell scripts we write. What are the commands we use for the PowerShell? If you go move and if you click some anything, get context, and this kind of script you are aware.
Yeah, that's it.
The only commands and OS will be changed, but the things will be similar, automation and everything. It won't take much time if you know about Windows and PowerShell. We are not deep diving into Linux, right? We are touching all the other services, cloud and DevOps services. Only in some places, I majority use not even Linux. In majority portions, I have used this one only, PowerShell. I know both. I have implemented some places here and there, PowerShell and Linux also. That only will use in the CI/CD pipelines. If any customizations and something we require.
Actually, I have 8 years experience. In all in 8 years, I work in Windows base only. So I didn't get opportunity to work in Linux side, and I didn't learn also that.
You can get it, sir. You just compare with your PowerShell skills and Linux. Then you understand. It will not be a more difference, you can say.
I thought you missed one topic, that is IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Where is that? Did you cover that?
IaaS, right? Infrastructure as a code. In this one we have infrastructure as a code. Using ARM templates or biceps or Terraform, we can create the Azure resources.
No, infrastructure as a service, IaaS, SAS, that some 3-4 services.
That is different. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service.
Cloud computing.
Yeah, that we will discuss in the first module.
So where?
Azure Cloud Fundamental.
Yeah, fundamental.
When we start here, right?
Okay, yes. You will cover here, no, in this.
Azure Cloud Fundamental, introduction to cloud computing and Azure.
I'll tell you the difference. Let's say you are seeing some straightforward update. Let's say SAP is there. That's on software as a service.
Yes.
And on platform as a service will be there. Azure DevOps is a platform as a service.
Yes.
And these things, I'll show you some differences and examples also.
Okay. So class will start at exactly 8:45 and it will be ended 9:45. 1 hour?
Yeah, it will take 1 hour each. Yeah.
Every day 1 hour.
Yeah.
It may increase, right? If you have some query and all.
Yeah, it will.
So we'll